welcome to The Walk. Last time I was going over the judges. Just a brief run through really quickly of all the judges because it's important to compare the time of the judges with the time of the kings and what the biblical context is of these things so we can understand the actual kings and their role and how they did with what their expectation was. So after we see the judges, these were people who were simple people who God worked the miracles through, or people even who were powerfully blessed physically in a military way. God worked through them. No one of promise really, so God got the credit. And people of Israel rejected that, and they said, we want a king who is like other nations. They wanted a celebrity with all the bells and whistles and the wealth. And Samuel said, where do you think all that wealth is coming from? It's coming from your pocket. He's going to take your children. He's going to take your crops. He's going to take your money, your livestock. And they said, okay, we want that anyway, because they were so passionate about having this worldly king in rejection of the model God had given them. This was a sad thing because now they are looking on the outside and not the inside of what a king is supposed to be. If we look at what a king is, it's important to go back to the Hebrew, right? The scripture is written in Hebrew. Melech, that is the king. So in Hebrew, that's the word, melech, melech. And it reads backwards to English, melech. The vowels are not as important. In fact, they're not even listed in the Torah, but you just know the words. So in English, it's pronounced kind of like this. We see the consonants are the main ones. Melech, melech, king. And so we have to know this word to take it apart to understand the role of a king. Hebrew is not like English. And so when you take words apart, the root letters usually have a meaning to them that goes beyond what you first see. A king in the time of Israel was not just to be a ruler like we think of today. Today we think of a king, we think of, it can be a tyrant even, and it's still a king. It can be just the ruler, someone who oversees, someone who owns everything. These are all under the terminology of king today. But king, in the biblical perspective, was to be a lot different. Okay, so let's look at the word melech again. And the main letters, the sounds are k, melech. And they stood for and k. Okay, so let's go through this. Okay, for melech. We take the first letter, it stands for moach, which is the mind and it controls our thinking. Okay, so we think thinking is the first part. Ol, right? Lev, heart, and that's our passion. These are parts of the body that comprise the soul, the whole person. The last one is chaved. Chaved, or liver, which is strength. And you think, well, that's kind of weird. Liver? Mind and heart we can understand, but liver? Well, we have to think, we also use intestinal fortitude and we say guts for people with courage, or a nerve, meaning courage. And all these things have really nothing to do with the actual organ. Just like liver doesn't mean your personal strength, but that's what the word symbolized, liver symbolized strength. Mark 12, verse 30. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. So if you're a king, you're to be the mind, the heart, and the strength of the nation. So you are to serve them wholeheartedly. You embody them. You are to serve the people for the sake of God, and you're to serve God in serving the people. So you are the middle between God and the people when you are the king. So you embody the people and you bring them to God. And also God gives you messages for the people. And so that's what a king was supposed to be. A king was supposed to be the heartbeat of the nation and never about himself. He is to be the servant. So when we think of king, royal, ruler, he's up here. But in the biblical perspective, he's the servant of all the people to God. And he's a servant of God for the sake of the people too. So this is the role of the king. This is the model of God, as opposed to the model of humanity, which puts the king up here and the people down here. The way God sees it is the people are served by their king. Scripture also tells us if you want to be great in God's kingdom, you have to be the servant of all. And God's paradigm makes the king the servant of all. So when the king goes astray, the people suffer. We have the king loses his connection with God, the people are the ones who suffer. When David had his sin with Bathsheba, the people suffered. There was a curse on the nation because of the king. When the king walked in the right way, the people were blessed. There's a very close connection between the king and the people. Because the king is the mind, the heart, and the soul and strength of the people. So when we look at the kings, Saul, David, Solomon, and Josiah, and some of these other kings, we need to compare them with that model. Are they connected to God? And do they take that connection to the people? Or are they well connected with the people and they bring the people to God? Are they fulfilling their role as a king? Moach, Lev, Kaved, the mind, the heart, the soul, are they encompassing all of this and being the heartbeat of the nation? This is a different way than we view of kings now, but this was the biblical mandate for a king. In Joshua 1, it says, "This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but you will meditate upon it day and night." The kings, the rulers, the judges, everybody was supposed to always have a scroll of God's law to meditate on so that they could lead people in the right way. This was very crucial for them to be that conduit between people and God. Another very important part of being a king for God, not like the other nations, was you also had to be a prophet. A king and a prophet. So you had to be able to prophesy and prove that connection between you and God before you could have that connection with the people. So if you remember our model, God, the king, and the people. So for the king to have that connection with God, it had to be proven and verified, and that was through him becoming a prophet. Now, Saul was told by Samuel, and he was predicted when he would become a prophet. And now I'm reading from 1 Samuel 10. In this chapter, Samuel is talking to Saul about the time that he's going to prophesy and become a prophet. It says, "The Spirit of the Lord will come upon you, and you will prophesy with them and be turned into another man. And let it be when these signs come to you that you do as the occasion demands, for God is with you." And then down to verse 9. "So it was when he had turned his back to go from Samuel that God gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass that day." He turned into a prophet with a new heart and began to prophesy. Then he's ready to be king. Because until you have that connection with God, you are not fit to be king over God's people. So when we look at Saul's life in our next segment, we can see that, troubles came about and that line was severed, but he couldn't be anointed king and really become their king effectively until he was a prophet and had that connection with God. And then he also had that connection with the people. So let's see in the coming kings as we study who really embodied that concept and became the heartbeat of the nation, bringing God to the people. So join us next time and let's examine Saul's life closer and let's see how he fit into the model of him being in the middle, God above, people below, and how did he connect God and people together as the leader of the nation, as the mind, heart, strength, and soul of the nation. See you next time.